Matt Bauer. What is going on, my friend?
Usually you have another word in between the first and last name, and I know this is a family show, so we can't say that. So
Actually, it's not a family show. You're right. I apologize. Matt fucking Bauer. Do you feel
there
better
you go.
now?
I answer to that. Yeah, I'll answer to that one. Doing all right, man. No, I've enjoyed working with you over the years, and I'm super glad to be having this conversation with you, and I'm honored to have been invited to it. So
Well,
yeah,
thank you for actually saying yes to the invitation. I would have been very hurt, very heartbroken, very sad, morose, possibly, had you said no. So, thank you for protecting my emotions.
of course.
I really appreciate you. But
Yeah, like a delicate flower. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, that's probably the most apt description of me that I've ever heard, so I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Most people don't know. Yeah. Yep.
So,
Mhm.
Matt, you and I have crossed paths I don't know how many times around the playground, but
Mhm.
it's been many, many times over the past, I think I want to say 5 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, back in New York, in your home stomping ground there.
Yeah, in 2019 when we worked with our friend Jessica Pettit and
Yep,
made some magic,
yep.
and then I'm like, "Who's this dude that's following me around like a paparazzi with this camera? I don't know if I feel good about this." Usually, I'm the one with the camera in the hand following
I know,
people around. It was
I know.
very meta. It was
Yeah,
very meta, but it was very cool
yeah,
because when I saw that video and the way you made me look, I'm
yeah.
like, "Oh shit, this guy knows what he's doing. He's not bad. He's
Yeah,
not
you
bad
got a
at all."
cameo. Yeah, you got a cameo in that one, man. That was just great. I just loved watching you make magic as and I know that's a tagline for you, and it really it is absolutely appropriate because the way that you make people feel in front of the lens is how I want to make them feel, when I'm video recording, and just like it's natural, and it's just worthy of being photographed or filmed. That's how you make people feel, and then not everybody can do that. And you absolutely, we love Jess Pettit, but she would rather be not in front. Like she's just, I'm just over here, just doing my thing. Don't worry about it. I'll be on stage every once in a while, but I'll just don't worry about me. But she felt gorgeous. She looked gorgeous, and you just, it was an honor to capture those moments between you and her, and just showing her the the photos that you had taken, and just the color. Oh my gosh, it's like my favorite photo shoot that I've witnessed ever.
Wow.
So
Look at us glazing over each other already. This is
that's
gonna
what
be
this is about,
magical.
right? This is of course,
No,
that's
but
over here. Yeah,
and it wasn't that wasn't the only time, but,
yeah.
it was definitely a great experience,
Oh yeah,
and all of them are great experiences,
yeah,
but,
yeah.
aside from us waxing poetic on how wonderful the both of us are, I wanted to chat with you and record this and share it with folks
Sure.
because the reality is what you do is extremely important for those that you serve. Aside from the photography that I create for our clients, the speaker reel is top of the food chain. And as someone who spent a considerable amount of time behind a video camera, I understand very well the importance of that speaker reel. And you are absolutely one of the top in the industry, and it's why I wanted to have you come on in and talk a little bit more about the importance of these assets that you create for your clients. But before we get into all of that stuff, I wanted to know from you, why did you decide to work with experts who speak in the first place?
That's a damn good question, and thank you for the compliment earlier. Going back to our friend Jess Pettit, I have known her for going on 15 years now. And I used to be an IT guy. I used to be, I mean, let me start a little bit before that. So my senior year in high school, they offered a video journalism class.
Hmm.
And so I took that class and we created our own like news broadcasts for the school and commercials and this and that. And, working with, this was even like almost pre-premiere Adobe Premiere days, and, you know, like with tape and film and like literal like broadcast media stuff. And that's when you catch the bug, right? Like, I created this and that's cool. And so I dabbled in video production here and there, over the years. And then in, like, I don't know, 2006 or so, maybe 2007, something like that. I was a computer nerd, but also made money doing it. Basically, did work in IT for certain companies, and fixing computers remotely. And Jess happened to be a customer of ours
Oh,
at the time, and called in and just asked for me every time, like, because we had, I mean, if you've met Jess, like, like the first 15 minutes of your conversation have nothing to do with the purpose for the call. Really, is just shooting the shit. And so we kind of hit it off there. And she would ask for me to help fix her computer every time. And then she asked, like, hey, do you know anybody who edits video? And I'm like, I dabble. And she was like, well, I have this sizzle reel that somebody messed up for me. And I was like, well, what's a sizzle reel? And she just kind of explained it to me. And I was like, oh, okay. I fixed it up for her, and she was thrilled. Fast forward a number of years, to 2016, and she posts my information on a couple of Facebook groups with NSA speakers. And I wake up the next day, February 1st, 2016, with 12 clients and a whole business. And so I guess, John, the answer is it just happened. And
wow.
since it just happened, and it's been almost 9 years now, in February to be 9 years, um, I I'm a performer myself. Like, I'm a musician, as I in that fast forward, span of time that I just mentioned, I played music on cruise ships for a number of years. And so I've always been on stage. And so it was a clientele, speakers are a clientele that I really relate to. And so just kind of putting yourself out there, and in my expertise, or experience, I'm putting myself out there musically. Like, I'm just, you know being vulnerable in that way. And so speakers are being vulnerable in a different way, in sharing their messaging and having people hear them, hopefully hear them, and take with them something that benefits them in their life or their business or whatever it is. It's kind of doing good for the world, and making changes that only a performer or a presenter can make. And so that bond, I think, that's my whole moral of the story. That's what kind of makes me stick with this industry, is that camaraderie, and that um, being able to relate in that way, because I know what it's like on and off stage and in front of and behind the camera. And so it also helps me know how to capture, when I'm out filming, know how to capture these folks in such a way that maximizes that messaging and maximizes that impact, and translates to a hell of a reel.
Wow. From cruise ships to keynote stages. Look at you now.
I know I've come so far. Yeah,
I,
no,
I
it's awesome. Yeah,
that's cool, man. I didn't know about the IT thing.
yeah,
But it,
yeah,
but knowing you a little bit, yeah, no, I could see that. I
yeah.
could definitely see that for
Totally a
sure.
nerd thing. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it totally makes sense, and the way that you relate to the folks that are on those stages, I can easily also see how your skill set is easily transferable to that. And then you got the bug early on, so tying it all together, that's pretty awesome. That's one of those things when you look back, you're like, wow, how the hell did I connect those dots? Right?
mhm,
You wouldn't have, if you would have sat down and plotted out your course of, the the 10 years from school to that to now, it's like you wouldn't there's no way in hell you would have done that.
Right. Right. You can, it's all happenstance, and really it's butterfly effect kind of thing. And I just that just goes to show that, like, if I hadn't taken that video journalism class, like, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. If I hadn't, you know, uh, any of these decisions, would have altered the course of this. And it just fascinates me. And but I'm so glad, it's one of those feelings that's like, I do feel right and fitting in what I'm doing now. I don't feel out of place where I'm like working for the wrong people, or not in the right job. I do feel fulfilled in this, both from a former performer, current, I guess, and former performer, and helping to sharing my message, and to now help people amplify and share their message in the best way.
Yeah. No, it's magical. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah. Yes.
Um, but speaking about the work and speaking about those reels, talk to me a little bit about your opinion on what really makes a high quality speaker reel. What are the essential components and what makes it pop in the way that you do your special, secret sauce with putting together those reels?
It's a great question. I would say impact, uniqueness. I was just talking with a client this morning, over her differentiators. um there's a lot of folks, like, in leadership space, just a lot of folks in the sales space. It's the differentiator, being able to show that, being able to illustrate that. If I took what you if you gave a speech, you Joe speaker gave a speech, and then I had the transcript of it, and I went up and I gave the same speech, what would the difference in impact be? It's the delivery, it's the vehicle for that, it's you. you know um a lot of these things are things that people have heard before, but if you put it in a certain way, or if you make certain analogies to it and metaphors, if you explain it in a way and in a vehicle that just really breaks through that barrier that people have had, where they have not had it register yet in their brain to take it and improve their lives with, like, that's what you need, and that's what you have to show in a reel. And how you do that, uh, a lot of times, is through I would call them impact statements, but basically, uh, testimonials are highly underrated, as important in a sizzle reel, and not just testimonials that are like, "Oh, he was great on stage. He was great." Okay, what was great about it? Like, what are you taking with you? Like, specificity is what's really important in testimonials, and video testimonials, even better. Like, oh my gosh, this person was great. The thing they said about this thing, oh my gosh, that really clicked with me. Because that is what people are hiring for. They're hiring for the impact of the audience, not just an hour long show, where they're like, oh, that was cool, and then they walk out and nothing else. Like, there's substantial money that goes into hiring a speaker, and for good reason, because it's substantial impact that they're going for. And so if I'm crafting a reel, that's what I want to communicate, is like, it's not just if you pull the trigger on this, it's not just an hour long thing. It's an hour long life changing, potentially, thing. And the life changing part is what comes out in the specific testimonials, like, oh, this is great, this is great, what really really stuck out to me was this. And oh my gosh, I'm going to remember that next time I this. And it's something that you think about, and it gradually changes your life, or your process, or your business, or whatever it is. That's the goal of someone hiring a speaker. And so if you can instill that through a 3 to 4 minute sizzle reel, like, you've sold them.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. I mean, the testimonials also provide that social proof that this person has done a job that is at or above the expectations of the meeting planner or the association that hired him or her to get on that stage to be able to do their thing. Now, aside from the testimonials,
Mhm.
what are the other ingredients that go into the speaker reel as it is? How many stages do you need to shoot, or do the clients give you speeches that have already been shot, or is it a combination of both? And is there an interview piece that goes in with this? What exactly does that 3 to 4 minutes look like when it's
Yeah.
done?
Yeah, yeah, and so if it so the ingredient list is kind of, well, we need to credibility piece, of course, and that comes in, like you said, with multiple stages. Like, basically, the boxes that you need to check for a meeting professional are like, do they have a pulse? Yes, check. Do they have they been trusted with a microphone in front of their employees in on more than 3 occasions? Yes. Did they wear different outfits on those 3 occasions? Yes. Was it an elevated platform of some type? Yes. Like, that's credibility. That's it. Fortunately slash unfortunately, it's a have to have credit to get credit sort of business. And so, like, if you're just starting out, it's like, hey, hire me for this. Well, what have you done? I can't prove that right now, but I promise I'm great. We can't go by that. So that's where, like, showcases come in, where, a chapter would hire out, a venue and a videographer, hopefully me, to capture some stage footage so you can have something to show, that you have at least that credibility of being on a stage and showing what you can do. And so, checking those boxes, yes, multiple stages, multiple outfits, the interview piece, like you mentioned. Anytime I go out and film someone, if there's time in the day and the ability to do it, like, I've got the gear for it, we're going to sit down and do an interview, because you can squeeze so much from that orange, not just in a sizzle reel perspective, but from a social media perspective, or, a 3 minute, who is this person, about me sort of thing on YouTube, or whatever it is, with your call to action at the end. you know so the interview piece can really show what I would echo, the know, like, and trust factors. That those are the check boxes, really, that a meeting professional, or anybody who's hiring anybody, or buying anybody, or doing business with anyone, is looking for: know, like, and trust. And I think the interview piece, it's a no smoke and mirrors sort of thing. This is really me. I'm the same person on stage as I am off stage. I'm genuine. That transparency piece, because I always love to break down the barrier between performer and audience, or business and consumer, and just be all on the same level, where there's just 100% trust there, and value. And so, that definitely can be sort of a backbone, and a driving piece for a sizzle reel, to kind of set up some clips, or to, reinforce some points maybe that you didn't say on stage, and to just really give a window into the who. And, like I said before, the content is one thing, but it's the vehicle, it's the person who's delivering it. Why is that person delivering it? Can you may not necessarily say what your background is on stage, and here's why I'm a credible expert in this, but you can talk about that in an interview. And so, yeah, so we got the stage pieces, we got the interview. Of course, we have, where we have spoken before. If we've spoken with Microsoft or Google or whatever, like, put that in. It's kind of a video resume sort of thing.
Mhm.
And a call to action at the end. Where do we go to learn more? How do we, what we pick up the phone? What number do we dial? Like, where do we go? I want to hear more. And that's really my litmus test at the end of every reel. Is if it's a 4 minute reel or 3 minute reel or something like that, it feels like 30 seconds. And it's
Right.
like, whoa, I want more. But it's like, whoa, that it's just people not checking the time on the YouTube video or whatever, how much longer is left in this thing. That's my litmus test to make 4 minutes seem like 30 seconds.
Well, that's the thing. There is this. now I want to say this misconception out there that if any video that you create is longer than 30 seconds, you've already lost people's attention. And in my opinion, I believe that if the story is good, people are going to watch it for as long as it runs,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
And it's experts such as yourself that create compelling beginning, middle, and ends, with this three stages and the interviews as the spine throughout the entire story. And then you have your as trusted by, I call them the NASCAR slide with all the logos on it from where they've
Yeah.
spoken, and then the testimonials in there, and then the call to action. If it's a good piece, if it's a good story, people are
Yep.
going to watch that whole damn thing all the way through. And that says nothing to the person's essence and personality, which also, helps draw people in. I mean, that's the whole point of putting one of these things together.
Mhm.
Now, with all of these different elements that you talked about, how long does this process take from, hey, I heard you're a pretty good speaker reel guy. I want to do some stuff to, um, okay, it's done. Now I can post it on my website. Well, how long does all of that take?
Well, honestly, there's two different answers. There's an how many hours goes into it, and then there's a what's the current workload and kind of all that stuff. I would say on average about 4 weeks, uh, 4 to 6 maybe, depending on workload. But hour wise, I can put maybe up to 40 hours in a single reel, or even more, just to get it totally perfect and totally right. I'm more of a perfectionist than I like to admit. But I've learned over the years that 99% is and done is better than 100% and taking a long time. And so it took me a while to learn that and adjust to that. But how long does the process take? I'd probably quote around 4 weeks. Uh,
Now, now is that's taking into account that they already have either A, you have recorded a couple of those stages, if not all of them, or B, they have given you all three of the stage pieces, and then you can conduct the interview. Now, can that drag along with regards to, you waiting for them to get to the right stage?
so the 4 weeks goes from when I have all of the assets. So when
Okay.
I have, if I go out and film something or film an event and film the interview of video testimonials, like B-roll, everything, it takes me about 5 business days to process all that and package it all. That's if you have me come out and film. Um, and then once I have all those assets, recorded and deposits paid and all that stuff and all the paperwork's done, then it's about 4 weeks. But if you're furnishing other video that you've had shot before, there is a bit of it. I'm still going to quote that 4 weeks, but once I have all the assets,
Right.
then that's go time. But I will, in my first meeting with the client, kind of go, all right, of the things that you provided me, here's what I can use. Here's what is not going to do well with it. Here's what I can use as B-roll. But that's the thing. Even stuff you would think, okay, well, the sound is awful, but the video's okay. Great. You got some killer B-roll right there. That's awesome. We can show that to again check the boxes that they've been in this other venue. They had a microphone, they were wearing nice clothes, whatever. Boom, checked that off for credibility. Even if you originally thought that that video was unusable because the audio is unusable.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah. So the edit process would be 4 to 6 weeks, and then the entire process could take several months, depending upon whether or not you're going out in the field and shooting them on a stage, or you're waiting for them to send you stuff and you're crossing your fingers and your toes and hoping that this stuff isn't dog shit and you can actually use it.
yeah, and so if I have like an initial consultation with someone, Like, I'm going, all right, what stuff do you have? What do you need? What do we need to check all these boxes? Do we need me to come out and film? um, what do you have already? How soon can you give that to me? And we generally, I mean, I've had, once they have a lot of speakers are just sitting on a lot of footage and just don't know what to do with it, but they're
Okay.
just sitting on it. But I'll make it easy. Here's a Dropbox link to upload it. Hey, I'll send you a hard drive if I need to. Fill it up, send it back. you know it's just getting them to getting to receive all of that stuff is not necessarily problematic, but it can be a bit of a hurdle. But I've been lucky. That stuff hasn't really taken more than a few weeks, in most cases, to get everything uploaded to me or sent to me in some way. The holdup usually happens with, hey, I had something recorded last week by this AV company, and they're not responding to me. Or I've had this other videographer that I worked with, they're not responding to me. Or they sent me this version with my slides all front and center, and I'm a little postage stamp in the corner.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, we have to have the opposite of that, or just you. And most AV companies will have the separate streams of,
Right.
that, but because I can only crop so much, and I don't
Yeah.
want to have to blow up something that's this big because it's going to be pixelated. So
Yeah.
then in that case, we just can't use it. And if we can't use it. But if you want the sizzle reel to be right, we got to have, I would say, minimum 3 good pieces of footage. Yeah,
Right.
2 good stages. Yeah.
Right. That's a lot of balls to juggle in the air, and there's a lot of opportunity for some to drop. What are some of the mistakes during this entire process, from the initial inquiry up to the delivery, that you see a lot of speakers make out there?
I might need a little bit more specificity on mistakes. Yeah, can you elaborate on that just a bit?
Yeah. Um, how, instead of mistakes, how about we reframe it to misconceptions about acquiring or creating a speaker reel?
I would say there okay, that is a better word. M- Less can be more, and I think some folks, actually, to be honest with you, a lot of folks have no idea what they want in a sizzle reel. um so I'll ask them, like, what sizzle reels appeal to you, of maybe some colleagues that you have or people in your space or whatever. What elements do you like from XYZ sizzle reel? Great. What does that do for you? What did that do for you when you watched it that gave you this feeling or this impression or whatever? So, to be honest, like, there's I don't really have people coming in going, I need this and this and this and this and this, right? They go, I just I just need gigs, or I just need there's two different kinds. I'm going a little bit off topic here, but there's two different scenarios generally. It's one, I need something to get gigs with. I need something front and center on my website so that people can book me. Cool. And then there's the wildly successful already speakers that have somehow gotten successful without a sizzle reel front and center, that just based on word of mouth or based on whatever other fortunate, ways they've gotten gigs, they're getting gigs. But it's incongruent with, their success and presence is incongruent with their website. Like, you go to their website, it looks like crap, or they don't have it just doesn't. I don't, maybe cut this out, but the carpet doesn't match the drapes, basically. So I don't know how else to say that, but it just does. It's not congruent with that, and so that's the other kind of client that I have is, people to substantiate what is being booked. And so there's kind of two different approaches to those. The getting gigs, yes, that's where we're more focusing on the credentials and the NASCAR strip, you know,
Right.
and the testimonials and kind of selling, but not smoke and mirrors. Again, I'm not about the smoke and mirrors. I want to be genuine and transparent, but the focus is more on that. But for those speakers who are just like, I just need something to like match what I'm doing, that's more organic and more like the man, the myth, the legend. Like, here he is, in not a smoke and mirrors kind of glory, but just here he is in a professional way, doing what he's doing, what you're hiring him to do. But as far as misconceptions go, I would say that there's not a lot where people have something that they think they need, that they don't actually need. All you need is you, really. And it's my job to go, okay, what examples of you do you have? What video footage of you do you have? You doing your thing. Okay, I'll pick out the clips that I know will be most impactful. You can co-direct with me. I welcome that. If you have certain things you want to put in a sizzle reel, great. I would say if there are misconceptions, there are that, like, I want to put too much into this, that is what's needed.
Right.
So,
Right. So, first of all, with regards to the carpet not matching the drapes, that's definitely staying in. And second of all, regardless of the two types of camps, the two types of speakers that you mentioned, at the end of the day, the long story short is they don't know what they don't know. And
correct.
that's why they hired an expert. And that's why experts hire experts for a reason. That's
Yeah.
why people like them hire folks like us,
Mhm.
because we can help fill in the gaps for them, help
Yep.
shorten that learning curve, help them understand what is most important in order to be able to help them be positioned in their video and their photography assets as the go-to authority in their space of expertise.
Yeah, you can't
So
see your own label from inside your bottle. So
no,
you need people with who have read a lot of labels, and who know what yeah, it's that outside the box sort of perspective.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to their unique personality, you talked about them, no smoke and mirrors, being very genuine, and obviously I can relate to that.
Mhm.
How do you make sure that they are being genuine in front of that camera? Does it start in that first phone conversation? Is there a strategy call involved where you're identifying all of their uniqueness and the impact that they want to create, and then you help craft the interview questions that are is the spine of this reel to be able to really lock in that beginning, middle, and end that really ties back to them?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Well, it starts with a questionnaire. So I have I've built a questionnaire that I send. And this is even after the initial consultation. I'll kind of get the ins and outs of what they're looking for, what they're about, their topics, and things like that. The questionnaire has pretty hard hitting questions in there. That kind of force you to answer in a transparent way, and not like a what I want to hear, but like, seriously, why are you in this thing? Why are people going to believe that they should listen to you? These are the things that I want to bring out in a reel. And so the answers to those questions, like if I'm going out and filming an interview with them, those answers will help me to a certain degree, but I don't have preset interview questions. It's a conversation. And in having that conversation, that's what brings out the candidness. That's what brings out the genuineness and the transparency, because there's no knowledge of the questions beforehand. So there's no opportunity to create a canned answer, and therefore one that is not as transparent as it could be if it was just off the cuff. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I love that. That's really important because, for some folks, they feel more comfortable just winging it.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, not winging it. They prefer to come in and have everything prepared, and then it
Yep.
feels very stale, not stale, but stiff.
Yeah.
It feels very contrived.
Hmm.
And what you're trying to create, from what I understand based on what you've been saying, is something that's more organic and very genuine and connected to them, the human being, while also tying in and weaving the credibility factor of, oh, this person knows what the hell they're talking about, and we should be paying attention to what they have to say.
Yeah, it comes down to the trustworthiness factor. I can know you and go, okay, well, I know that they do this. I know where they are in their space, and I know that they've done this and this and this, and they've worked with these folks. Great, that's done. Okay, great. Yeah, I like your personality in general. Great. The trustworthiness, that's what really checks that box. And if I'm hearing someone with canned answers, or something they've rehearsed or something like that, I'm me personally anyway, I'm going, you've rehearsed this is not from your heart necessarily. It might have been at one point, but it's been processed at this point, and I'm not feeling that trust where I'm, if you're having if you have any conversation with anyone ever, do you want them to already have said this before, these words that they're saying to you? No. It's one thing if it's a story they've told a bunch of times or whatever, that's fine. But if you're having a genuine conversation with someone, to me, it takes out the genuine part if it's rehearsed, or if or if it's something you've said on stage. Well, in that case, I can only use one piece of footage, either the stage one or the sit down one. But why are we having two settings for that if we're going to have the same sort of content? The content on stage is the content on stage. I want to know you. I want to know the real you and your actual thoughts off the cuff.
Yeah, because between the interview and the stage stuff, that's where you get that mixture of them being the superhero that solves people's problems when they're in front of that audience.
Yep.
And then on the other side, it's, oh, also a relatable human being. I
Yeah.
mean, we need to have that mixture, because otherwise, if it's all stage stuff, then you feel very hands off, because, oh wow, all the way high on the mountaintop over here. But
Disconnected. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So that's what helps create that well, the broad strokes for who that person is, who they serve, and the problems that they solve for
Yeah.
those people. Right.
Yep.
So all of this stuff that you've been talking about, from the getting them on stages, getting the footage, whether you're shooting it or they're getting it from the gigs that they have, the edit time that they're paying for. I mean, this is quite an investment. What could a professional speaker expect to pay for something like this?
It can vary. W- I would say,
$50 million.
I mean, if you're offering, I'm
I'm not.
I'm not I'm not gonna turn you down. Um, to be honest with you, the numbers in my head, anywhere between five and $10,000. It
Okay.
it really,
And
what it comes down to, I'll say this, John, is if you're gonna purchase something or make an investment in something with that purpose of that something making you whatever your full fee, not what you accept, full fee. Let's say
right.
your full fee is 15, 20, $25,000. That thing has more than paid for itself, even if you spent 10 grand on it. Like, and it's going to get you more than that one gig. And hopefully it'll be in, I mean, turnaround time. I would say, I don't want to say turnaround time. I want to say, like, how often you might update your sizzle reel. Every year, every 2 years, something like that, especially if you have an appearance change or something like that, or your topic changes. Whatever changes about you should be reflected in your sizzle reel. But let's say you have this one sizzle reel that you get done. That's going to be on your website at least a year, at least year and a half, something like that. In that year, how many gigs do you want to get from it? As many as possible. If you get one and the thing costs $10,000, it's more than worth that investment. Now, can I sell it that way? I can try, but at the end of the day, yeah, I would say, yeah, between 5 and 10K.
Right. And with regards to where your price point is, let's call it 10. I think you're worth it.
Oh, thanks, John.
Says the non-speaker that doesn't have to pay for you. But let's just say 10. Um,
Sure.
where does that fall in terms of the grand scale of other videographers who specialize in this industry creating speaker reels? Is that somewhere in the top of the middle, lower middle? What does that look like?
I'm actually in the spectrum that I just laid out. I'm actually in the lower part of that spectrum. Um, I don't know where I should be, but where I've that's where I've settled.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, Matt.
Right, right, and I appreciate it. But there are certain others in this industry that are geared toward speaker reels that are on the upper end, and they have a bit of a different, I mean, their stuff that they produce is great. They do have certain formulas involved in that have been tried and true.
Mhm.
I find value in that, but I also find value in that everyone's different and that everyone has their own kind of unique formula that makes them effective at what they do and what they speak about and the message that they carry forward and how that's impactful on their audience. So I think the reel should match. But yes, there are certain folks that will charge 10, maybe even more than that. And there are the Fiverr editors of the world. No offense to them, but it is really what I found is you get what you pay for at the end of
Right.
the day. So
Speaking of the Fivers of the world, I was gonna ask you about, the emerging speakers, the folks that are breaking in, they're a couple, months to a year or two in, and they need something,
yeah,
and they don't exactly have a back end. For example, a lot of our folks are what I refer to as slashies, right? They're experts who speak, coach, train, consult, and maybe write books too. So that side of their business is getting put together, and the speaking is the vehicle to feed all of the other tentacles of their business. But
yeah,
they're at the beginning, right?
yeah.
Are you pointing them to Fiverr? Are there other options that are out there for them to create a reel that is commensurate with their experience? Or I wouldn't say commensurate, I would say more in line of positioning them in an impactful way, to use your
Mhm.
phrase, but at that level. What does that look like for them?
Perhaps I'm not the one to ask because I have also been known to. I will always say my heart is bigger than my wallet will ever be, or my bank account will ever be. Um, in that I get that. Like I said earlier, it's a have to have credit to get credit sort of industry. And you
Right.
could be the greatest. Like I've met like the greatest speaker, even starting out. Like there was a gentleman who's just. I'm like, why aren't you? Holy crap! You're just starting out. You're like perfect at this. He's like, yeah, I don't have much money. I'm coming from this place, and I've got the skills and all that stuff. I'm not going to go. Well, good luck, and try Fiverr and maybe get something that will be what you pay for. I'm going to work with you. I like to think of myself or hope to be a lifelong video partner, someone who continues to put out their social media clips for you or just kind of keep an inventory of all the footage, and assets that we might build together, or that I might capture or just keep just to repurpose. And if you just to be your go-to video person,
Right.
to be a trustworthy and reliable go-to video person, because that is a big deficit or deficiency in what I've heard from people is I had a videographer and he disappeared off the face of the earth with all my footage and with all like,
Wow.
yeah, that sucks. That's a trust thing. And that kind of people have been burned before. And I've even had a client recently go, you know what? I've had such bad luck with videographers. And for the first time, like, I'm crying at this footage because it's so good and it's going to do so well for me. And I'm so appreciative of that. And that fills my cup. And that's awesome. And that's the same kind of cup filling that I would get from someone who maybe doesn't have necessarily the five to $10,000 to do something. I will
Right.
make the best of what I can with the funds. I mean, I've got a daughter. I've got bills to pay. I mean, everybody does. You know, I've got to make a certain amount, you know, to survive. And so, as long as certain boxes are checked for me, then I can do whatever I possibly can for that person. You know, in getting them at least to that next level of being able to get a gig that would pay for a bigger sizzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, in the same way that our people in front of the camera are in the business of building relationships with those that they serve to be able to get more gigs, to be able to get more clients,
Yeah.
all of those good things, we're doing the same thing. And similar to you, I do my best to meet my clients where they are as well.
Yep.
While if it were up to me, I'd be doing half-day sessions with everybody, but that
Right.
is not a fit for everyone based on where they are currently in their business. So
Right.
I do have other options that can kinda come on down and meet them where they're at, and there is no resentment because much to your point, you know, it fills my cup as well,
Mhm.
and it is a relationship builder, and generally speaking, I wanna have a long-term relationship with these folks and grow with them as well,
Yeah.
because it's a hell of a lot easier to work with people that you've worked with before than to run the risk of running into someone that's not a fit and it's a mistake, and,
Yeah.
the next thing you know, you feel a level of resentment towards the person. We can avoid all of that by making sure that the way that we position ourselves, the stuff that we have in the storefront window in terms of our options are available to people at all stages of their careers
Mhm.
speaking,
Yep.
and everybody wins at the end of the day,
Mhm.
So that's what really matters most.
Yep.
Now, I want to go back to something you said earlier with regards to their speaker reels. You mentioned that for some of the assets that you create, whether it's B-roll of them for the interview, or it's B-roll of the audience, or if it's the interview itself, when you trim the fat from, let's say you record an hour interview and you're using literally like a minute and 38 seconds of it, and the rest of it is stage work and B-roll and music and the
Yeah.
NASCAR thing.
Yeah.
But um in terms of how to leverage that content, how do you help them shape that loose end stuff into valuable social media content?
Great question. I would say, well, obviously you're constrained by, you know, vertical video, 60 to 90 seconds, you know, if we're talking Instagram, well, as long as, yeah, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok. If we just get this mixed up sometimes, they have certain parameters that you've got to keep it to, right? And then there's YouTube, which can be any length, any size, all that stuff. Um, as I said before, you can squeeze a lot from the orange. So if you film like an hour-long interview, which my interview is probably about 30 to 45 minutes or so, the deliverable that I will package up and send to the client is all of my questions that I'm asking cut out. So it's just all the answers. It's
Right.
just a very concise sort of thing that any editor can cut up. The audio is optimized, it's color graded, it's multiple angles, HD, 4K, the whole thing. So like you can squeeze a lot from those oranges in a multi-camera sort of thing. As far as purposing or repurposing, I guess, for social media, you can take so in a social sorry, in a sizzle reel. There's that's like 3 to 4 minutes. Not a lot of time for like stories. If stories are a big part of what you bring to the stage, you kind of have to hint in a sizzle reel that like stories are what I bring to the stage. You can then extrapolate those stories onto a YouTube video or in a 90-second thing on its own, that comes at the end with a certain point that you're making or whatever it is, and make that as concise as possible to fit in with that 90 seconds. But you can do that either from stage or from the interview. So from the interview specifically, that's more biographical stuff. That's more, here's a longer point than what I was trying to make in that 10 seconds, in the sizzle reel, but here's that full version, that extended version of that. And again, at the end of every one of these videos is a call to action back to your website. Like you
Right.
said, the tentacles out there,
Yeah.
bringing them back to you.
And what I'd also say is with that video, you could repurpose it beyond online content. I mean, for some people, they could probably put it in their initial sign up for a newsletter and they can drip that out. They could probably use this content on their website in one
Yep.
way, shape, or form.
Yep. Like on
There's
an about page, like on,
about page. You could definitely use it there.
yeah,
Um,
you can also transcribe it
I would
and yeah,
exactly,
go for it, John. Yeah, and just transcribe it and use it in a podcast too, or a blog, or whatever it is. Content
exactly.
is there's so
Yeah.
many ways to slice that up.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're looking at here is more than just a reel. We're looking at an opportunity for these people to create multiple avenues for uh, enhancing different touch points across their entire online presence, in addition to the fact that this is a gateway for them to get on those stages in the first place.
Yeah,
So, I
yeah,
mean, it's a value add on multiple different levels.
yep.
Now, with that being said, what do you say to the speaker that says, speaker reel? I don't need that. I got a name. I've got recognition. I have referrals up the yin yang. There's no point in me having this speaker reel. How would you talk to that person about why that might be a misguided thought?
To be honest with you, I don't know that it will always be a misguided thought. It really depends on where you want to be and what fills your cup as a speaker. If the success in general fills your cup and you don't feel anything's lacking, who am I to say that you need more than that? Um, if it's sustainability that you want, if it's credibility that you want, I think a reel could definitely benefit you there. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it, too. So it really depends on, if they're actually successful, if they're actually successful and it's sustainable that way with just word of mouth and it keeps going and going and going and going and going, great. That's again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Um, but if you have a desire, if you, speaker XYZ, has a desire to fill out that profile and have the carpet match the drapes, if we're keeping it in, I'm going to bring it back. Uh, then, then there's a need there
Mhm,
for, to fill that out with a sizzle reel or other online content or whatever. If that's what you kind of dream your presence to be, then cool. But if you're then that works for you. All of those assets can work for you. But if not, and you're honest with yourself, and you're just successful as you can be, and there are clients that I would say I've been chasing for years
mhm.
because I'm like, I would love to make a reel, and they're like, I'm way too busy to even have a conversation about it. Like, like that's a good problem to have,
It is. Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, I take your point, John, for sure. But it really comes down to it's your career. And if you're truly happy and successful, then it's kind of a value add, I guess, more than a necessity to have a reel. But I would say that's like the top 1%.
Got it.
It's very few of those.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Last question. Let's say there's someone out there right now that is in the process of getting ready, gearing up to invest in a speaker reel. What is the first thing that you suggest that they do to get that process started, to get the ball rolling?
Aside from call me,
Yes,
I
of
would
course.
say, um, honestly, taking inventory of what you have, as far as video assets. You can only do so much with, I would say, less than stellar video assets. I don't want to say, well, I guess I will say the phrase "lipstick on a pig," kind of thing. But
Right.
it's, the pig being just subpar video and audio quality, not subpar content. There's a big difference there. You could be Tony Robbins, but be filmed from, an iPhone in the back of the room in like 720p, where you're a dot, you're an ant. Like, great, but it does not a sizzle reel make. Taking inventory kind of what you have, is, I guess, first and foremost of where do I go with this, or how do I get this ball rolling for a sizzle reel. But also, in all seriousness, in calling me, like, the questionnaire that I would send out would really get you in the best mindset, to create one, even just in your head, of what you would want one to look like, and to kind of strategize over that. It doesn't just give me, the blueprint for it. It gets you in the mindset of, like, what do I really want to put out there? What am I really about? And there's some thought provoking questions in there, like, that really would help people craft their, or improve, or refine is a better word, their own content, and what they're wanting to put out there, which would equate to what they are putting out there in a sizzle reel.
Right. So, number one, take stock in what you have and be honest about it.
Yep.
Then, take a look around, see what your friends are doing, see what
Yep.
pops to you,
Yep.
and then pick up the phone and call Matt Bauer. Is that the order of preference here?
That's pretty much, yeah, that's
Okay,
pretty much it. Yeah.
that's what I
Speaker video.
figured.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
Well, well, Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure to get nerdy with you about
Yeah.
speaker reels because it. I know how. I mean, I'm right there, right there next to you in these rooms, running around doing the thing, and
Yep.
it's always a joy when I know that my client has also booked you and we're doing the same thing. So I really appreciate you taking the time to break this down for people to give them more insights on
Yeah.
what to look for in a reel, how to put a reel together, all that good stuff. And I look forward to running into you sooner rather than later on the road, my friend. Thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
being.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been an honor, and great questions, man. Yeah, this has been awesome. When do I get to interview you?
That's a great question. But first, yes, I'm skirting that one on the side for a
Yeah, no
sec.
problem.
Where can people find you?
Speakervideo.com is the best way, to do that. It'll forward to motivationalmedia.net. Speakervideo.com is just a little easier to remember. But yeah, or mattbauer.com will also have a link to it as well. Bauer. But yeah,
Okay.
speakervideo.com. You heard it in your head just now. So, all right.
And on that note, thanks again, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, John.